Hello again, Kirsten here, your host of the Decision Masters podcast. And we are in the middle of a series on how to be more decisive. Are you having the best time being so decisive? I think it's fun. I hope you're having a good time. We're not going to talk about the most fun thing today, but we are going to talk about a very important thing. And we're going to do it with a smile because we got to talk about it. If you want to be more decisive, stop wasting your time overthinking and second guessing and undoing decisions and putting them off forever and outsourcing them to everybody in your life. We have to get better at this thing we're going to talk about today. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Okay. Let's just make it simple and doable. And you know what? You can do hard things. So this is not going to be a problem for you. Today, we're talking about consequences. To be more decisive, you have to get better at dealing with consequences you don't like. I know. I would say you have to get better at planning things so perfectly that nothing ever goes any way you don't want it to. But unfortunately, I live on planet Earth in reality, as do you. So that can't be our plan. We have to get better at dealing with decisions playing out in a way we don't like. We, very solution oriented, go getter, high achievey type folks, want this to mean we have to get better at making good decisions in the first place. We want that to be the thing we have to get better at. My eyebrows are raised, y'all. hmm And I'm going to stick to my original point that regardless of how good you get at making decisions that only play out the way you expect them to, you still have to get better at dealing with consequences you don't like. Let's break this down so you know what I'm talking about because it's a different idea than last week's episode. Last week, we talked about getting better at accepting what is. Part of that is, yes, the consequences of last year's decision. Now we're looking at them. And if we don't like them, you do have to get better at accepting them, like we discussed last week. And we touched a little bit on part of that acceptance, potentially meaning you got to get better at emotions. So today, I'm talking specifically about your skill level with dealing with things not going the way you want. How do you deal? How do you deal when a decision plays out in your mind poorly? Do you go immediately to self-blame? If you want to be more decisive, you're going to have to change that habit. Here's why. When we're in this cycle of make a decision doesn't go how we want, we blame ourselves and feel terrible, rinse, repeat. That is how we expect things to play out. The only options we give ourselves to feel good then and to feel empowered and to feel confident is if decisions play out a way we like. You're setting up a very tentative decision-making system for yourself. Every decision that you encounter, because of the system you're used to, you only have two options. Things go well and I get to feel good. Things go not well and I don't get to feel good. I have to feel bad, which means there's only one option for you to ever feel empowered and confident. All the nice things we said that actually help you be decisive. So you're not setting yourself up to be decisive under this system. You're setting yourself up to be defensive, to be guarded against yourself, to fear your own judgment, to not take risks, because sometimes your judgment is bad enough that we would rather not even try to make a decision if it has the potential to go sideways. And that's not how a decisive person acts, not how a decisive person approaches decisions. Another problem with self-blame, besides the fact that it feels terrible, is that it's inaccurate. Most of the time, when you're dealing with consequences you don't like, it's not 100% your fault. And rarely, if ever, is it because you're a bad person. You're a dumb person. Whatever you are calling yourself in those self-blame sessions that follow quote unquote negative consequences. So when this is your system, you are setting yourself up to miss important, useful information about how did we get here? What was I thinking? What didn't work? What was in my control? What wasn't in my control? This is everything we miss when our go-to reaction is, this is my fault. I should feel bad. One thing you're going to have to do is get better at emotional processing and stress recovery. Let me tell you what's happening in the system of going immediately to blame. By the way, it's not just self blame that can be a knee jerk reaction. Most of the time, most of the people I work with have this system in place where decision is made, don't like the consequences, look to self, or how did self screw this up? Some of the time, though, we have an instinct to just blame outside of ourselves. Look for whose fault is this? This is your fault, or this is this person in my life's fault who I consistently blame things for, or this is this situation's fault. So it doesn't have to be self blame, but it's not discerning, clear headed evaluation that's happening. It's a knee jerk reaction to blame somebody or something. Here's what's happening when that's the system. All of the emotions you want to feel because of this consequence, because of these circumstances you don't like, get a thick slab of blame just slithered on top of them. If you'd like another analogy, because that one was too gross, it's like a thick fog is poked into the room. And instead of being able to see things clearly and move quickly, there's just a haze that dampens everything. And that haze is called blame. When you remove that extra layer that you're adding on top of all the other emotions, this blame layer, it's not awesome, you guys. I'm really not trying to sugarcoat anything. You actually uncover all of those emotions that feel worse than blame because they are how you actually feel: disappointed, regretful, embarrassed. When you get better at dealing with consequences that you don't like, it means you get better at feeling the real emotions you feel about those consequences. Blame is just protection. Blame is the surface emotion. It's the reaction to try to protect you from feeling the way that you don't want to feel. And we don't like feeling those feelings. Sometimes we have a very narrow window of tolerance for emotions, and we can hang out between pretty good and pretty crappy. But as soon as the spectrum widens beyond that window, we don't like feeling those feelings. And we want to climb back into our window and just be like, I am comfortable here. Thank you. Blame, super easy. I can feel that all day long. It might be time to check how wide your window of tolerance is for those emotions, good and bad. Usually when you have a narrow window, it is in the middle. So you can handle some good and some bad. You can't really dip your toe into the real negative emotions on the far end. And you can't really hang out too long in the real positive emotions. How you do this in real life is you start noticing your knee-jerk reactions. You start noticing, how do I deal with consequences I don't like? Do I look for blame? Now, is there value in figuring out what happened? Yes. So I'm not telling you just feel bad. Don't look for any information. I am saying don't immediately cover your emotional response with the reaction of blame as a way of avoiding feeling those feelings. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to start paying attention to what you do when decisions don't play out how you want them to. Are you in touch at all with your emotions about it? Are you able to name them? If you can't, it might be a good indication that you are not aware of your emotional state. If you can't articulate an emotion beyond bad, like the adjective bad, Google the feelings wheel and see if it helps you articulate what feelings you're feeling. So see if you can sense what you're feeling, see if you can name it, see if you can feel it. The other thing you're going to make sure you're paying attention to and then getting better at if you need to is stress recovery. Because what happens when you don't process emotions and you just tamp them down and you ignore them and you slather blame all over them and then you just rage through this consequence that you don't like? You have unprocessed emotions that can make you sick. What happens with stress that you never recover from and you make yourself just live inside without ever processing and regulating and recovering from that? You make yourself sick. We can't be walking around all willy-nilly in our lives, sick from unprocessed emotions and never-ending stress, okay? It's not going to help you be more decisive. Again, you're teaching yourself this is what we should expect if I get this choice wrong. If you're dragging yourself through this process of either blaming yourself or everybody else or emotional bypassing where you're like, I don't feel feelings. What humaning? Every time you have a consequence you don't like, you are teaching yourself, this is what I'm going to expect. This is what's in store if I get this decision wrong, which is only going to discourage you from being more decisive. So when you're better at regulating stress, really recognizing you're in a physiologically stressed state and addressing that with any kind of breath, any kind of movement, any kind of thing that has to do with your physical body and not your mind and the things in your head. I know we want to solve stress with our thoughts, but are you remembering you are a human person carrying stress around in your human body? The better you get at regulating your stress and processing your emotions, the less easily you'll slide into victim mentality, which we can do. And we're not judging because we're humans. It can be easy to get there with consequences we don't like from decisions. Whether we're blaming ourselves or other people, we can make ourselves a victim and live in that, where we get nothing done and feel terrible. And it's going to help us not as easily get sick and lose sleep and have a weaker immune system and have reduced cognitive functioning, which we need if we're going to be decisive. Okay. The thing that happens when you get really on board with this idea of I am going to become great at dealing with negative consequences, when dealing when decisions don't go how I want, is you are on your own team and you know you're going to be on your own team no matter what happens. You don't always have to like the decisions you made. If you're sitting in a puddle of consequences and you can see the exact decisions that led to them, I'm not telling you you have to pretend to like that. And I'm not pretending you even have to like yourself in that moment. But here's what we know from adult relationships. You can like somebody a little more and a little less, depending on the hour, right? That's temporary, though. The love is what we want to remain constant. The trust is what we want to remain constant. So have yourself a little 5-minute period of like, you know what? I'm not friends with me right now. I don't like that I did that and I don't have to pretend I do. That's fine. If it's 5 minutes and not 5 years, if we can joke about it a little bit, even better. Okay, I'm taking a time out for myself. I'll talk to me in 5 minutes. I need to cool down. That's fine. But if you know you're not going to abandon yourself, you're not going to ditch the team because now we have this crappy consequence that we've decided should never have happened in the first place, you'll make your decision making stronger. You'll be able to go faster to problem solving, right? Okay, we have this negative consequence. Dang it. Let me actually go through the process that I've opted into with this part of life. Let me actually just feel the feelings of this not feeling good. Let me let myself not like it. And I'm not going to dwell on it and I'm not going to diffuse it with a bunch of blame that's not going to help me. And I'm not going to abandon myself. I'm going to stay on my own team and I'm going to let myself not like this. And then I'm going to help myself get better. I'm going to process the emotions. I'm going to recover from stress. I'm going to take care of my physical human and my emotional human and my mental human. I just described you as if you were like a Tamagotchi. Oh my God. If you get that reference, just know like my heart is hugging you right now. But that's what we're doing, right? We're taking care of ourselves with the best analogies we could think of. When you stay on your own team and you don't have to worry about that, then you can move through that part of the process as if it's part of the plan. No, not one you like, but part of the plan. And then you can go faster to the problem solving portion of the evening. You can move the spotlight from what's gone wrong, what don't we like, to what can we do? What do we want to do? And the final thing I'm going to say on this note of getting better to deal with consequences that you don't like, we might have made it all the way to this point in the episode with only saying the word regret once, but you got to get better at regret. There are a couple of episodes I can point you to that I'll link in the show notes. Episodes 48 and 49 of the Decision Masters podcast are about regret. And here's what I want to tell you about it. If we're putting this part of life in the plan, we're accepting that we are going to have consequences to deal with that we don't like. We have to put regret in the plan. You get to decide what role regret is going to play in your life. You get to decide, how is this going to function? How is this going to be a thing? How do I want to think about regret? How do I want to experience regret? There can be a default way we think about regret and we think we have to experience it. I'm going to tell you, It's not always accurate and it's not always intentional. Sometimes we think if I have a regret, that just means I have to feel bad about this thing for the rest of my life. I have to make myself feel bad, make sure I pay the dues of my bad feelings every time I think of this thing or every time it comes up. Sometimes people don't even realize regret is an emotion that you can experience and process through, and they only think of it as a cerebral experience, a thought you have about something you wish didn't happen. And I'm going to tell you it's up to you. It's up to you how you want regret to function and exist in your life, but it is worth thinking about so you know where you stand. Personally, my pretty inarticulate version of this, my party line is there are going to be things that I don't like. It's okay. There are going to be things I wish I'd done differently, things I wish I hadn't done at all. And that's part of the deal. And sometimes it'll feel worse and sometimes it will last longer, but we're deciding it's part of the deal. And no matter what, I have agreed with myself, I have to stay on my own team. If there's a hard moment where I'm really deep in wishing I'd done something differently, I have to be with myself in that moment, not against myself. I will get myself through that moment, however long that moment lasts, but only from on my own team. Does that make sense? If you want some expansion on that, if you're like, I don't actually know how I want to think about regret, start with those other episodes. I'll link them below and see how it feels this week to notice if there are any consequences you don't like from your decisions. And if you've been a longtime listener, thank you. It's so good to see you again. You know that I encourage people to start with small stakes if we're looking to have some habit change. So you can start small. You can start with literally a dinner order because we know that regret can come up in these situations, right? You can be waffling between two options and you can pick one and then it can come and maybe that guy ordered what you were thinking of maybe ordering. And now you're looking at it and you're like, oh, I've made only wrong choices. And it happens at the grocery store too. I am full of deep regret. I picked the wrong line. You were behind the guy with the bright orange hat and then you switched lines. And then now that guy's walking in the parking lot and you're still here and you've made all the wrong choices in life in that moment. Take these opportunities. The stakes are so low. It's the easiest place to practice. See how you deal with those moments of a consequence you don't like from a decision you made. See if you can do it a little more on purpose. Even just bringing awareness to the fact that I'm in one of those moments will allow you to have a different experience of it. If you aren't going to spend that whole time in the slow checkout line blaming, if you're not going to just spend every minute till you get into the parking lot blaming yourself for choosing the wrong line or blaming the person in front of you for like wanting a price check or whatever, what does that change for you? Do you get to find out any emotions that you're feeling that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise? Do you get to go to being on your own team again and feeling okay in this moment at all? Do you get to recover from any stress? Did you just work yourself up and it actually gets to occur to you? I'm just going to take a few deep breaths. Oh my gosh. Would that ever occur to you if you're in a line and it's taking too long? Probably not. Do you get to steady your heart rate and increase your heart rate variability in that moment? Potentially. Does that impact how you feel going into the parking lot and then how you feel driving away and then where you go next after that and who you interact with and how you feel and what thoughts you think and how well you sleep that night? I said it before and I'll say it again. The small things are the big things. This is not no big deal. That checkout line moment, that moment at dinner when you don't like the thing that you ordered, these are prime practice moments. And it'll make it easier to deal with the big consequence you don't like if you practice in the small moments. So please don't let them slip away. Okay, we did it. We talked about the kind of unpleasant thing, but it's part of life and we were up for it and you did a great job. Thanks. If you're ready to get better at this and you want more help than the podcast can provide, you can click the link in the show notes to talk about working together. As of this recording, I only have a couple of spots open right now to work with people one-on-one. We can get you changing these habits in your real life day-to-day. We can get you being more decisive and making decisions for reasons you like and be more in touch with what you really want, what really matters, and get better at dealing with stuff not being perfect, not going the way you want. I'm here to help if you need it. I hope you have a wonderful day and come back next week when we talk about more ways to get more decisive. See you then. Hey, want to find out your decision style? Obviously, go take the decision style quiz. It's in the show notes and at kirstenparker.com/quiz. We all have our style when it comes to making decisions, but do you know how to use your default way of thinking to your advantage? Or do you mainly get stuck in the most annoying parts of overthinking and people pleasing? The decision style quiz has your answers, my friend. Take it right now at kirstenparker.com/quiz.